you can even watch back. Giving players all the props or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk facts.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
Play it on the car ride, play it when you lounge. X and O, you know that we can hold it down. Shout out to my man Sammy, got it off the ground. And to all the listeners tuned in right now, got debates, analysis, and speculation. This is sports talk for the new generation. You know where to find us, got a reputation. Sick podcast, your #1 sports destination.
Giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
S-I-C-K is the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk back. S-I-C-K,
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 S-I-C-K.
All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
S-I-C-K, it's the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk facts.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
Play it on the car ride, play it when you lounge. X and O, you know that we can hold it down. Shout out to my man Sammy, got it off the ground. And to all the listeners tuned in right now, got debates, analysis, and speculation. This is sports talk for the new generation. You know where to find us, got a reputation. Sick podcast, your #1 sports destination.
Giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
S-I-C-K is the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk back. S-I-C-K,
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 S-I-C-K.
S-I-C-K.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast. With Tony Marinaro.
55 seconds left in the penalty, a minute and 27 seconds left in regulation time. Boston 4, Montreal 3. Lafleur coming out rather gingerly on the right side. He gives it into Lemaire, back to Lafleur.
The sickest Montreal Canadiens podcast.
You're in the ball!
Sports entertainment like no other.
Rejoint, on lui fait perdre la rondelle, une passe devant. Et c'est le dégagement et ce sera la victoire des Canadiens. Coupe Stanley pour les Canadiens. Leur 23e de l'histoire.
You found the dogs! John, you found the dogs! He found the dogs!
And all together, they worked a young team to the top. And now, a 24th Stanley Cup banner will hang from the rafters of the famous Forum in Montreal. The Canadiens win the Stanley Cup.
Brought to you by Energy Transportation Group. Driven to be different. La Vida Tibi. Embrace your true nature. And Playground, your premier gaming destination. It's gonna be sick.
Marinaro, the Sick Podcast on this Wednesday, February 26th. As most Wednesdays, this is pre-recorded because, of course, Craig Button works nights and there's hockey games going on. So once again, it's pre-recorded, and a couple of teams that will interest the Montreal Canadiens, like the New Jersey Devils, who are in their conference, of course, and the Ottawa Senators, who are not only in their conference but also in their division, are in action tonight. And so these games, the Ottawa game is over by the time that this podcast is airing at 10 p.m. The New Jersey game is a late start at 9:30 p.m. Eastern. They are in Colorado. So what we do know is that the Montreal Canadiens were 5 points out of a wild card spot going into tonight's action. And the Montreal Canadiens are pretty hot, if 2 games means you're hot. But the Canadiens have won their 2 games following the Four Nations face-off. And I think we're starting to realize that the Canadiens were fatigued. They had a difficult schedule prior to the Four Nations face-off. They really needed the time off, and the fact that their best players were off during that time and not playing in the Four Nations face-off. Suzuki was off, Caulfield was off, Mike Matheson was off, Lane Hudson was off, the list goes on and on. And we'll talk about that a little bit later on. The Sick Podcast is brought to you in part by Energy Transportation Group, a leading full-service logistics provider serving all of North America, driven to be different. Also, get ready for the Spring Break Power Weeks at Playground. The cards are hot and the vibes are chill at Playground from February 27 to March 9 with 12 exciting events and a cool $400,000 in guarantees. So get ready to stack your chips and soak up the action. This break is no bluff. Visit playground.ca for details. Without further ado, I bring him in pretty much every Wednesday from TSN, their director of scouting and hockey analyst, Craig Button. How are you?
Great, Tony. How are you doing today?
I'm doing extremely well. It's a day off for the Montreal Canadiens, much deserved after a huge win last night versus the Carolina Hurricanes. They beat them by shutout. And Craig, you know what? I'm not going to, let's just get to it right away. I had Max Lapierre and Pierre Maguire on last night after that game. And at one point, we were talking about Jake Evans. Arpon Basu of The Athletic has reported in the last little while that the Canadiens are trying to package Jake Evans and Yoel Armia. Usually when you're trying to package, it could be for a couple of reasons. They're on a fourth line together. They're on the shorthanded together. They play very well together. But it also could mean that when you're trying to trade one of those players, you're probably not getting the return that you like. So you're trying to make the package more attractive. I said to Max Lapierre and Pierre Maguire yesterday, both gentlemen who said that they would not trade Jake Evans and that they would like to keep him. I said to them yesterday, I said, you know, what would you offer a guy like Jake Evans? And then I said, what if I told you he wants $4 million a year on a 5-year deal? What would you say? And at that point, there was a little bit of silence. So, look, I had an information a couple of weeks ago. I held on to it for a couple of weeks, one source, then it became 2. And then, you know what, a third. And then I'm like, okay, you know what? I'm going to go for it. I said it, so I'm going to say it again. But I want everyone to understand something. And Craig, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about because you've been around the block more than once. Jake Evans' group has asked for a 5-year deal worth $20 million, $4 million a year. I would imagine the Canadiens are going to be asked about it at some point, and Ken Hughes will probably say what he always says, that he doesn't discuss contracts openly because they're confidential. I would imagine someone at some point is going to come out and say, by the way, it's not true, because I would imagine the Evans clan probably not crazy that these numbers are out there, because a lot of people are hearing the numbers and seeing them and saying, Jake Evans is a really good player, but sorry, at that amount of term and that amount of money, I pass. But I stand by what I said, and this is what was asked for. Craig?
Yeah, I mean, what I'll say to you, Tony, is real simple. I said this to you on an earlier episode of the Sick Podcast.
Yeah,
is that I'd be happy to sign Jake Evans. Term is going to be a big part of this. Term, me, there's no way I'm giving Jake Evans 5 years. Now I might consider giving Jake Evans 5 times $2 million a year, and I go, okay, that's okay. But you know, Jake Evans has played superbly for the Montreal Canadiens this year. Good on him. Great on the Montreal Canadiens for allowing Jake to expand his game and to do some real significant things. And I think that's really, really important. And it's nice. But you ask yourself, Jake Evans, 29 years of age, that takes him to 34.
Yeah.
There's no way. There's no way I'm giving him 5 years. Now, if we can find a dollar figure on a shorter term that works, great. If not, then I would tell Jake, listen, you've earned this. Go out to the market. The market is good. The market is got more money in it. Go and take advantage and do what you and what you can do with it, because he's done that. And nobody's going to discourage a player from trying to maximize what he can get on the market. But what Kent Hughes and the Montreal Canadiens can do is say, it might work somewhere else, but it's not working for us. And that, like, I've used this term many times, and I will continue to use it. It's the Bill Belichick line. Dispassionate assessment. You don't have to say you don't like Jake Evans. You just say it's not going to work. And so we move on. There's other players out there. And I'm not like, I love what Jake Evans has done, but dispassionate assessment requires that you just take the emotion out of it and just go, this is the cold-blooded part. And let me just finish with this, Tony.
Yes.
High-level competition, I don't care if it's individual or it's team, requires you to be cold-blooded.
Yeah, I totally hear you. And by the way, I totally understand where both sides are coming from on this, okay? So you think about it from Jake Evans' perspective, okay? He's 28 years old. He's going to be 29 in June. And he'd like to have a long-term contract, because it might end up being the last contract of his pro career, because it'll take him to 34, like you just mentioned, okay? There are 4 players on the Montreal Canadiens that right now have more points than Jake Evans. 3 of them are forwards, okay? Those 3 forwards, Nick Suzuki makes $7.875 million per season. Cole Caulfield makes $7.85 million per season. And Juraj Slafkovsky has signed a long-term deal, which kicks in next year, in which he's going to make $7.6 million per season, all right? Evans probably takes a look at that, number one. Number two, Evans and his agent are looking at players that have less points than him, like, for example, Brendan Gallagher, like, for example, Yoel Armia, like, for example, Kirby Dach, like, for example, Christian Dvorak. And they take a look at those players and they say, okay, Gallagher's on a contract of 6.5, Anderson's on a contract of 5.5, Kirby Dach's on a contract of 3.362, and Dvorak's on a contract of $4.45 million per season. And then they take a look at the fact that he plays the penalty kill. They take a look at the fact that his faceoff numbers are 52.3%, which obviously are very, very high numbers of regular players the Canadiens have that take faceoffs regularly, second only to Dvorak, who's 56.8% this year. And so I understand Jake Evans and his group, led by his agent, of course. I totally understand, and his agent is Brian McDonald. I totally understand them saying we have to ask for this. I totally understand the Canadiens not wanting to give that number, not just yet anyway. Maybe they might not at all. They probably say, you know what? Fourth line guy, third line guy at best. We probably have other guys within the organization that can do it, or we can get those players. Anyway, This is business, right? This is what it is.
Hey, all the points you just made are really good. What I will add to that is none of those contracts were signed by Kent Hughes. So it's great. Like, I mean, it would be one thing if he signed Josh Anderson to that deal, or he signed Brendan Gallagher to that deal. He hasn't signed, or Christian Dvorak to that deal, or he hasn't signed those guys. Those were contracts that were there or absorbed for different reasons. So
he did sign Caulfield and Slafkovsky, but those are other players who are top two line players.
Okay, I'm talking about the last group of guys.
You're right, 100%.
Jake Evans.
Yeah.
Okay, if Jake Evans is your fourth highest scoring forward, you are never going to win. That's the cold-blooded heart. That's the cold-blooded part of this. Yeah, I don't care if he's my fourth highest scoring forward. That screams to me and slaps me in the face. It goes, hey, listen, we got bigger problems. We got to improve our team in other areas.
Yeah, that's
like
a fair statement.
I like Jake Evans. If he's your fourth leading forward scorer, you're never winning.
I think that's a fair statement. And you know what? I think everyone likes Jake Evans. Let's be honest.
We love him.
He plays on arguably the best fourth line in hockey. Let's put it as a top three line, a top three fourth line in hockey. And he is a top three fourth line centerman in the National Hockey League this year, I think. Is that fair?
Listen, his play dictates that that's fair. I mean,
yeah.
Whether we think it's fair or not, I think he's been fantastic for the Montreal Canadiens this year. He's a flex player. He can move in different parts of your lineup. We know what he's done on the penalty kill. But, and there's going to be value in him. And you talked earlier about Armia and Evans being packaged together. That may also be a case of other teams going, we can check two boxes at the same time.
You're right.
Might not just be Montreal trying to find value. Right. I think the Toronto Maple Leafs should be hard after Jake Evans. A right shot center that wins faceoffs and penalty kills, they don't have that in their lineup. I think he would be a great addition for the Toronto Maple Leafs. He's not that's not the only team, but Jake Evans has real value out there on the marketplace. And I think that Montreal knows it. And I think that 5 years times $4 million, that's an easy no for me. Easy no for me.
We are 9 days away from NHL trade deadline. And once again, anything can happen because one side could cave, the other side could cave, the two sides could actually meet somewhere and find some common ground. But as of, February 26th, at the time of this recording, which is prior to tonight's games, if you were a betting man on Betway, you would bet that the two sides are headed towards a divorce right now. Speaking of Betway, go all the way with Betway and get a free bet up to $200. If your first bet loses, scan the QR code on the screen or click on the link in the details section to create an account, redeem your welcome offer. Offers only available for new customers. Terms and conditions apply. Offers not available in Ontario. Must be 18 years of age and older. And please play responsibly. Okay, so you just talked about the Toronto Maple Leafs and what a guy like Evans can bring them. You're a general manager in the National Hockey League. You'd like to acquire this player for a playoff push. I've mentioned before, and I know it's been reported as well, and I've confirmed the report. I didn't have the initial report. It's been reported in the past, and I've also confirmed the report. The New Jersey Devils have expressed interest in Jake Evans. I can guarantee you that 100%. By the way, they had 2 scouts at the game last night, 2. You're a GM in the National Hockey League, Craig Button. You believe that you need a Jake Evans on your fourth line. You need a Jake Evans for your penalty kill. You need a Jake Evans. He's a responsible player. And what would you be willing to give up, knowing that chances are you're probably going to lose him at the end of the year because you're probably not going to be able to see eye to eye on a contract?
Second round draft pick. Simple as that. I'll cut right to the chase. The other thing, if you got to send scouts to go watch Jake Evans at this point in time, then you haven't been doing your work well ahead of time.
I hear you. Okay, but
I find it ridiculous that, these scouts are in the building tonight to watch Jake Evans. Like, really? You don't know what Jake Evans is? You got to send somebody there to watch it? It's a joke.
I know. Joke. NHL teams, I don't have to tell you this. They send scouts all the time to games, right?
Yeah, I know, but
I'm sure that.
You know what I'd be doing if I was a manager?
Yeah,
I would be misleading. I'd be sending scouts to places where I don't have interest in players.
Oh, that's good. It's called Swordfish, John Travolta, misdirection.
Did I ever tell you, do you ever hear the story about Red Auerbach? And
no.
I think it was Lenny Bias. I believe and Lenny Bias died of a cocaine overdose. But and it might not have been, but it was a top player. So Red Auerbach was in the stands, and he was watching the game. He loved the player. I'm pretty sure it was Lenny Bias. anyway, he's watching the player, loved the player. At halftime, he took his program, he crumpled it up, he made a big out of the arena, threw it in the garbage can, and left. You know what the other scouts said? Oh, the guy must not be very good because Red Auerbach doesn't like him. Misdirection, baby, misdirection.
Yeah.
Don't let people know what you're doing.
Yeah, no, that's a good one. You're right about that. So the Canadiens are where they want it to be. They're in the mix. Okay. So we have a bunch of people watching us right now, and I thank them for being there, watching us on YouTube, watching us on Facebook. And they're seeing a Montreal Canadiens team that is A, in the mix, and B, still trying to make the playoffs. And they're saying, well, the Canadiens have stockpiled a lot of draft picks. If all he's going to get you is a second-round pick, I'd rather hold on to him and send the message to the group that, you know what, we're going to keep everybody here because we're going to try and make the playoffs. It's not worth a second-round pick. How would you handle that? You're the GM of the Canadiens. Let's just say you get the trade deadline next week, Friday, March 7th. It's trade deadline day. You're 2-3 points out of a wild card spot. You got 4 players whose contract comes to an end at the end of the season. Jake Evans, Yoel Armia, David Savard, and Christian Dvorak. You're trading all of them because they're not going to be in your plans going forward. I mean, what would be the message what kind of message would that be sending to your group?
Well, I mean, these are the conversations that the manager is having all the time with his group, coach included, and, watching his team play. A manager, Serge Savard told me this when I first became a general manager. He said, Craig, you got to be around the team all the time. You got to just have a feel for the players. He goes, like on a personal level, be around, like you understand. And he goes, they're not going to tell you how they feel. It's your job to know how they feel. And it's not just about being distant. You got to be around. You got to understand where the players are at. I'll tell you, like near the trade deadline, like 2 weeks before, I was always around. I made sure that the players are going, oh, there's Craig. Oh, he takes a phone call. Oh, he's leaving. What's he doing? They're all paying attention. So I was out. I made sure I was around even more in the 2 weeks leading up to the trade deadline. And, I talked to players, and players, when you build that relationship, players are open with you. And I remember Denny Gauthier and Craig Conroy were hearing their names in trade rumors. And I went to them and I said, listen, you guys, I said, I'm not looking to trade you guys. I said, you guys know the deal. If we can improve our team, I'll always look at improving our team. But I want you guys to be part of the strength of our team. I want you to be part of what we're doing going forward. So unless something happens that's significant, that you guys are here. I want you to know that. And I would always be around and tell them that. Trade deadline passes. And I'm in Philadelphia. I remember I'm in Philadelphia, and I walk in. And it's before the game, long before the game. They're in there, and Craig and Denny are working on their sticks. And I looked at them. I said, "What are you two guys doing here?" They looked at me. They go, "What do you mean?" I said, "Well, I thought you guys were being traded." And they started to laugh. And they they said, and so Craig told me that he had been told previously before being traded that he wasn't going to be traded. So it was hard for him to trust. Denny Gauthier said, you hear your name out there, you start to get a little bit worried. But by being around and communicating with your players, and I know Kent and Jeff are doing that, and being around the group and understanding what the feel is. You don't want to pull the rug out from underneath them. At the same time, you have to go and have that communication with your players. Hey, Jake, how do you feel about staying here? Yoel, how do you feel about staying here? Here's where we're at. I know I could trade you, but we're in a fight. And get a feel for your players. It's the personal contact back and forth. And that's what Serge was trying to impress upon me, in that regard. And I think that's what you have to do. If you feel that your team is going to benefit from those players being around as you're playing meaningful games, whether you're how close you are in the playoff race or not, I see that as a positive because it's Suzuki growing and Slafkovsky growing and Caulfield growing and others growing, Laline Hudson growing with that support around them. Yeah, that's just something you have to balance out. Yeah. So what avenue you take, Tony, is one that you have to determine what's our value. You don't always have to. Another dumb thing that I'll tell you is stupid is, you got to get something for them. Well, the something you might get for them is them being around to help your other young players go through the challenging times down the stretch.
Yeah, I hear you. Kent Hughes has said recently that, there's different ways that he could have gone about his job, but he's chosen to be around the players. He's chosen to communicate a lot with the players. He's chosen to be, quote unquote, a friend to the players. He's chosen to be a confidant to the players. That's his approach. And you know what? One of the things that he said when he got the job was he wanted to make sure the communication was going to be good and that players were going to feel good about being Montreal Canadiens. And if one day, they chose to move on or they were dealt, that they were going to have good things to say about Montreal because they were going to know where they stand, because there was always going to be an open line of communication. So look, I would imagine, it sounds interesting what you're telling me here. Owen Beck played last night.
Can I just go back before we go off of that?
Sure.
What Kent said is exactly true. Like, you got to build up trust. You mentioned earlier it's a business. The players know it's a business, and management knows it's a business, but that doesn't mean you can't have honest, personal conversations with the players and understand what they're feeling and trying to help them, relax, help them, put them at ease, or understand, hey, this is what we got to do. There's nothing wrong. Like, we know it's a business. But what Kent's doing, I look at Casey DeSmith when he acquired Casey DeSmith from Pittsburgh, the Jeff Petrie deal. Is there not a better example of that, of what Kent said? He said, look, I'm going to work to move you, but I'm going to be on my timeline. And once it happens, and I'm going to work. Yeah. Well, Kent went and proved that.
He did the same thing. He did the same thing with Jeff Petrie, by the way. He told him, I know you want to be moved, and I'm going to try to accommodate you, but not at the detriment of the Montreal Canadiens. I'm going to find something that makes sense for us. And then if I do, I'll move you.
And your actions speak louder than your words. And I think that Ken is doing that. And Serge Savard was a great GM in the National Hockey League. He played for great teams with a great GM with Sam Pollock. So, somebody that can influence your group in such a positive way like Serge did, certainly passing on advice to me and watching what Kent and Jeff are doing. Those are all the right. You don't want anybody talking ill will of your organization.
Yeah. One of our partners is Souvlaki Authentique, and we give them a shuttle family operated Greek restaurants with 7 locations. We say hello to Terry and Costa, and also Lachine, Boisbriand, Pierrefonds are some of those locations we just talked to you about. Fresh Quebec chicken and fresh Quebec pork, hand cut, marinated in-house. Their gyro is hand-stacked in-house, never frozen, no MSG in any of the recipes. Greek potatoes, not your Yaya's Greek potatoes. These have a unique lemon sauce at Souvlaki Authentique. Also brought to you in part by a beverage company, which is Bittt Tibi. They launched their new Ultra Lager refreshing thirst quenching beer, perfect for chilly winter days. Only 90 calories, 2 grams of carbs, 4% ABV per can, available in a pack of 6 to 12 in grocery stores all around the province of Quebec. Ultra light and ultra refreshing. Kirby Dach is out with an injury right now. We still have no news for the Montreal Canadiens. What the timeline is, the Canadiens once again were off today. They'll be back with a morning skate tomorrow. They host the San Jose Sharks tomorrow night. So Owen Beck got the audition, playing in between Patrick Laine and Alex Newhook. Craig, he looked pretty good.
Oh, I thought he looked excellent.
Yeah.
I thought he, one of the things that Marty St. Louis said just after Owen Beck had played on the recent trip out west is he talked about how much quicker he is, how much more decisive he is, how much more comfortable he looks at. I think we all saw that. Slides right up into that spot in the second line between Newhook and Laine. I thought he looked terrific. I really did, which I'm going to go to another thing. So do you want to block Owen Beck from being on your team because you've signed Jake Evans to a long-term contract? Better be careful.
Yeah, no, I hear you. Look, I think he's got a nice ceiling, Owen Beck. I really do. I think his ceiling is higher than Jake Evans, but only time will tell, right? But I mean, Evans obviously is at a point in his career where he's acquired a wealth of experience. He's in his 6th NHL season, and he's going to be a good player. I thought he really passed the test yesterday. Now, you know what? Whether or not he could step in and be a second line centerman, that's a lot. But the Canadiens definitely need help with their center ice position. And we were talking about this yesterday, Craig. So Kirby Doc hasn't convinced anyone just yet. He just hasn't. He's got one more year on his deal after this season. Dvorak's likely going to be moved. Right now, it's looking like Evans is going to be moved. Owen Beck's 21 years old, and you would think that he's not ready for a big-time role on the team just yet. This organization has some work ahead of them, huh?
Okay, so they do. Well, Tony, Kent Hughes, the statements made that like they have some work ahead of them. Kent Hughes, you go, oh my Lord, geez, I didn't realize that. Like they look at their depth chart every single day. It's all up there. They know what they got. Salary cap certainty in the 3 years past this. Opportunity with all the draft picks, all the prospects. They have good prospects. They're not all going to play for the Montreal Canadiens. I've made that clear for a long period of time here. That's going to be the case. So how you're going to take all your other draft picks, your prospects, and maneuver to try to build your team in other areas is all going to be part of the equation to build this team. And there's no question about it. So just back to Jake Evans, and you're right. When you say Jake Evans, oh, it's just a second-round pick, is it worth it? Well, Jake Evans for a second-round pick might be worth something that you're going to package somewhere else. I don't know that, but there's so many moving parts.
Yeah.
Bottom line is, yeah, the center ice position needs improving. There's no question about it. And I think that we can talk about Owen Beck. I mean, he was the MVP of the Memorial Cup last year. He's played on championship teams. He knows what it takes to win. He's acquitted himself very, very well in professional hockey. And he certainly shows that at the very least, he's going to be a really good third-line center in the National Hockey League, in my view. So if he can be a number two, well, let's see and wait. Well, maybe he'll show that he can be that. But you're right. The center ice position needs some work.
If I was this team that I'm going to talk to, because you brought up the Toronto Maple Leafs, and you said if you're Toronto, you know what, they should go after Jake Evans. If I were the Edmonton Oilers, I would like to add a Jake Evans, I think.
Well, if they added Jake Evans and Yoel Armia, that would take care of a fourth line penalty killing situation. And their penalty killing has not been very good this year. And certainly, they had Derek Ryan in there. I mean, adding another right shot center just gives a coach a little bit more flexibility. They don't have that in their lineup. They have Henrique and they have Draisaitl and they have McDavid, Nugent Hopkins. They're all left shots. The same thing with the Toronto Maple Leafs. We can look at different left shot centerman that they'd be talking about. A right shot center that plays in a certain spot in your lineup, kills penalties. That never hurts you in the playoffs.
Yeah, and you're right. They do have depth at the center ice position. They do with the players that you talked about, but they could use 200-foot players in Edmonton. They really can, I think. But then again, let's look. Ryan Nugent Hopkins has played wing before in his career. Leon Draisaitl has played wing before in his career. I mean, at one point, I even think I saw all three of them playing on the same line. Like these are centermen who can play the wing as well. Having a Jake Evans would just give you so many more options, right? I think it would give you a lot of options for a team that are probably a couple of players away from,
strengthening themselves, giving themselves a better chance to contend for the Stanley Cup. They're an excellent team. I don't forget about the 3 losses they've had. They're an excellent team. But Tony, you talk to people around the league. There is no coach on the planet that's going to tell you, yeah, give me less options rather than more. Having more options, every single coach wants that.
All right. We talked about Owen Beck. Let's hear from Marty St. Louis on the line of Beck, Newhook, and Liney. And after that, we're going to hear from Patrick Liney on playing with Owen Beck.
The rest of our team, everybody's actions were really in the direction of, taking care of the team and in terms of how much risk we're going to take, and each and every one doing their job off the puck, on the puck, that limits action that helps the other team. And I thought that line did that very well tonight, and that's what we need. There's Patty has plenty of offense, Nui has plenty of offense, and Beck is figure out to bring something to the game in the NHL, right? He's got great assets, but I just thought that as a group and that line also, we were very committed to the bigger cause, and not necessarily what they like to do on the ice, what we need them to do at every shift and whatever, because you don't know what kind of shift you're going to have. You don't know, because you're going to be an offensive shift, is it going to be a defense? I don't know what it's going to be, but you have to be willing to do the job, not just what you like to do.
All right, let's hear from Patrick Laine.
We, played a good game. There was a couple shifts in the own end that we gotta clean up. But I think overall, he brings a lot of speed and he plays hard and he can make plays too. So I feel like it was pretty good.
And there you have it, Patrick Laine and Marty St. Louis with some good words for Owen Beck. So once again, I think we both like what we saw. I also like what I saw from Patrick Laine, who Craig during the Four Nations face-off, he said, you know what, I wasn't playing much with my team, and I'm looking forward to playing a little bit more at the Four Nations face-off. And I thought he was okay. I think he had 3 points in 3 games at the Four Nations face-off, Greg. But he also looked at himself in the mirror and said, you know what, it's not like I was playing great in Montreal, but Marty St. Louis said, you got to earn your ice time. In the 2 games back since the Four Nations face-off, Patrick Laine, he's been very good, Greg.
Listen, on the West Coast trip before the break, I know they had the 2 games during Super Bowl weekend, but on that trip, Patrick Laine was very open. He said, my confidence, I don't have confidence right now, and it showed on the ice.
Yeah.
And during one of the broadcasts, I said, this is one of the dilemmas for a coach. You're trying to help the player gain that confidence, and at the same time, not put the team in a vulnerable spot. So it's a double-edged sword for the coach. And so Marty says, well, you got to earn your ice time. But Marty's not just doing it with a razor cut. He tries to find a way to get Patrick in there. I think the reset for Patrick, going and playing for Finland, and I think there's so much with Patrick because he's been so open about his mental health, being able to, number one, say, I'm lacking confidence. Number one, as you say, look in the mirror and say, I got to be better. And then finding ways to be better. I think like Saturday in Ottawa, he was excellent. I thought last night he was excellent. And certainly we know what he's capable of. And Marty said, hey, we know Patty can give us offense. And as you build your confidence, you start to be able to play more freely, shall I say, instead of pressing and not being sure of yourself. And that's how Patrick Laine looks right now. One thing also I wanted to say, Marty had a lot to say in that comment. It's not about playing the way you want to play. It's about playing the way that what we need, whether it be offensive or defensive. That is one of the great things. Let me emphasize great about Owen Beck. He gets it. He gets it. Front to back, side to side, and everywhere in between. He's smart with the puck, smart without the puck. And Laine talked about how smart he is. Good players like to play with smart players, and they recognize that quick. And Owen Beck is that guy.
The Twitter account of Canadiens_Muse had a tweet earlier today of players with 5+ points in 2 games or fewer since the Four Nations break. This is the list. Matvei Michkov of Philadelphia, and Nick Suzuki of the Montreal Canadiens. So I want to talk to you about Suzuki, who had a goal, 2 assists, and 3 points, like Patrick Laine yesterday. I thought he was awesome, Craig. And you know what? I know he was obviously very disappointed that he wasn't selected by Canada. I know Cole Caulfield was very disappointed that he wasn't selected by Team USA, and they're not the only ones. But the fact that, look, it's going to be very tough for the Canadiens to make the playoffs. I think we all recognize that. But the fact that the Canadiens' best players, Suzuki, Caulfield, Matheson, Lane Hudson, weren't there, the break was awesome for them. They really re-energized the batteries.
Well, I mean, again, like physically and mentally, re-energize the batteries. And of course they're going to be disappointed. They're proud players. They're competitive players. They want to represent their countries. So that's wonderful. I've said this for a long time now. Nick Suzuki's Patrice Bergeron. That's who he is. That's who he is. As a leader, as a player, that's who he is. And you're going to win when you have players like Nick Suzuki on your team. There's no question in my mind. I don't care if he played great last night or he didn't play great or only played good. Nick Suzuki is today's Patrice Bergeron.
You're right. Some people will call him a poor man's Bergeron because Bergeron's going to go down as one of the best 200-foot players in the history of the league. So you're not, I understand what you're saying. I think out of all the players, past and present, that's the player that I think is the best comparable. I really believe that. Once again, you know what? I don't want to hear it on social media of how many Selke trophies Bergeron won. We're not saying he's a better defensive player than Bergeron, and we're not saying that he's in that category. We're saying that he reminds us of him quite a bit. That's all we're saying. And I totally agree with you. And, you said something. You were very outspoken before the tournament. I know Canada won the Four Nations face-off. So, you know what? At that point, chapeau to them. It worked out. They won. And there's nothing to criticize. But after watching that tournament, some of the things that we thought before the tournament, that Nick Suzuki could have his spot on that team, I still feel very strongly that he could have. Because let's be honest, there's a couple of players who just didn't have a great tournament.
Hey, I'll be straightforward with you. And I'm not going to back off from it. At the time they picked their team, Nick Suzuki should have been on it. Full stop. I know what the deal is in Canada. It's about you either win or you don't. Now, they won, and great. Should have been on the team. Totally I'm not backing off of that. He's better than a number of players that were on that team and helped them win.
Here's Marty St. Louis on Nick Suzuki's leadership.
No, I think Nick is vocal on the bench. I think, I think Nick didn't necessarily like the way his line finished, before the break, and you can see it in his response, how he's coming off the break. I think he's in a good place, and he's leading with a lot of great actions on the ice right now. But he's also I think he's growing as a more vocal leader as well, which I think it's important. But we're not forcing that. He's not forcing that, but he's getting more comfortable each and every day.
Vocal leader, but we're not forcing that. He's not forcing that. He's becoming more and more comfortable.
You have to be a leader. You have to be authentic, and you have to be comfortable in your own skin. However that looks, leaders come in all kind of different sizes and shapes. Bob Gainey, who was a great leader for the Montreal Canadiens, was a very different type of leader than say somebody like Mark Messier. Not say somebody like Mark Messier. And what Nick Lidstrom was different than Steve Yzerman, who's different than Sidney Crosby. So I'm just naming some captains here. But if you're not authentic as a person, you can forget about being a leader, because people will see right through that. And I believe that Marty is talking about, just Nick being who he is. And Marty's not going in there telling Nick, you got to do this, you got to do that. He says, I recognize leadership, because Marty knows what leadership looks like. And one of my common lines is, you can't be a leader of others until you're a leader of yourself. Nick Suzuki is all of that and more. And let me add one more thing, because it never feels right unless I make this comment. I just become more and more impressed with Marty St. Louis as time goes on. Yeah. And I've always been impressed with how he's approached things and everything. We talk about other players growing. Like Marty's a leader, and he's growing in his leadership role behind the bench as well. So impressed. Yeah, he said something, like he said a lot of things, but every now and then when he's in the mood to talk, like to really talk to members of the media, he talks about the fact that, he lets players be who they want to be, and he doesn't overcoach. He doesn't want them to play like robots. And if I was a player, man, would I want to play for a guy like that? I have to tell you that. And let me add one more thing too. Yeah. He respects what players bring. He doesn't ask Lane Hudson to not be, he goes, I love what you do, Lane, keep doing it. You know what? Like, finding ways to get players to be comfortable doing what they do best is a big part of a coach's job. Yeah. And then form it within the team. I think Marty, in terms of helping this team grow and the individuals grow, I think it's been really, really impressive. We're going to finish off the podcast with Juraj Slafkovsky and some talk on him. Before we do, a shout out to Jonathan Epstein and Lauren Kaminsky. Both of them are at Kanuk. And I don't know if you have a Kanuk jacket, but I could tell you that I now have two Shane Gamoa Master Control, if you can bring them up. Look at that. Absolutely beautiful. A new partner of the Sick Podcast. And I want to let you know that they are having a sale. They're having a warehouse sale up to 70% off, if we can bring that up as well. And there you have it. They're going to be having this sale on Saturday between 10 a.m. and 4 p.m.
Saturday, March 1st, and Sunday, March 2nd, between 10 a.m. and 3 p.m. Where? It's going to be in Ville Saint Laurent. It's going to be at 2328 Cohen Street. And men's winter jackets, women's winter jackets, plus accessories. The jackets, by the way, will range from 0 degrees to minus 35, plus accessories like toques, scarves, gloves, and mittens. Absolutely quality stuff. I was there at the store yesterday, and to tell you the truth, I wanted to walk away with everything in the store, but obviously that was not possible. So make your way down there on Saturday and Sunday. It's really going to be worth it because it's high quality jackets, winter jackets, and accessories for men and women. Once again, it's Kanuk, and the warehouse sale is up to 70% off this weekend. Juraj Slafkovsky says,
Can I ask Shane to do something?
Yeah.
Could you pull up that picture of Tony in the Kanuk jackets? I think we should have a vote on which coat looks better on Tony.
Thank you. I think they both look pretty good. Yeah.
You know, like open the voting at the end of this podcast, and let's see what we got. Like,
don't you think that Tony should be an ambassador for Kanuk? Look at the way, like, not only am I wearing the jackets, but look at how they fall on me. They're so beautiful. Anyway,
well,
thank you
I'm
very
going to
much.
put my vote in. I love the gray one with the hoodie on you. I think you look fantastic.
Thank you very much. It is kind of like a blue ice color. It even looks even nicer in person. It's unbelievable. Okay. Thank you for that. Juraj Slafkovsky says the team's playing a more mature game. He's playing a more mature game too. He said, coming out of the break, he watches tape of several players, two of which are the Kachuk brothers, and that he can learn from them. And I think it's with you that I had this conversation where I said they're showing him tape of Brady Kachuk, and you said they should show him tape of Matthew Kachuk because he probably plays more like Matthew. Well, he's watching tape of him as well. Yeah. And sometimes he's playing a little bit like Matthew, sometimes playing a little bit like Brady. But once again, it's a process with young players, right? There's ups and downs. But clearly the last two games have been, he's been very, very good.
What do we love about Juraj going back to last year? His willingness to get better every single day. His willingness to be open to different ideas, whether it be, we talked about this last year, shooting the puck and trying to figure out a way to be a better goal scorer. Now to be more impactful with his size, watching the Kachuk brothers. Like I said a couple weeks ago, I said, yeah, I can sit down and say I'd rather watch him, but there's nothing wrong with watching Brady Kachuk. You know, I hope that nobody took the suggestion that you shouldn't watch Brady Kachuk, but let's zero in on Juraj. His willingness to work at being a better player. There's no complacency in his game, none. And that's what's going to allow him to be impactful. He's going to be 21 coming up here in March. You know, he's got so much growth ahead of him, and that will be 3 years completed in the NHL at the end of this season. I mean, the future is so bright for Juraj Slafkovsky.
I know you graduated from school a long time ago, but can I maybe give you an assignment for next week and see if you're up to it?
Yeah.
When you're going to be joining me next week, it's going to be 2 days prior to trade deadline day.
Yep.
I'd love to give you the assignment, if you're up to it, of, you know, take me through what the NHL trade deadline day is going to be like. So as if you're going to be working it, what time you're going to get to the office, who's going to be there, how many people are going to be in that office, what are you going to tackle first, what are you going to tackle last, how are you going to approach things, how you're going to be looking at your team, how you're going to be looking at other players, you know, how many times are you picking up that phone and making a call, and maybe we'll make your role play one or two general managers in the National Hockey League and go about their business, or maybe I'll make you be Kent Hughes for the day. How does that sound?
Assignment accepted. And
Fantastic.
I tell you what, I will put in the homework and put in the time to bring all those experiences that I had over time to the Sick Podcast with Tony Marinaro.
As you always do, and we're very grateful. Thank you very much, Craig. Have a great night.
Yeah, you too. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Special thanks to our partners. Energy Transportation Group is one. Bittt Tibi, Playground, Souvlaki Authentique, Betway, and of course, Kanuk, and we welcome them to the Sick Podcast. Special thanks to all of you for watching. For Shane Gaumont and Master Control, thanks so much. Leave us a 5-star review on Apple. It's our way of feeling the love. I'm Marinaro. I'll be back tomorrow night, same time, same place, right after the Canadiens and the San Jose Sharks. Maybe well, not right after. I'll be back at 10 p.m. Eastern with my guest, Pierre McGuire, and the McGuire Report. Ciao for now.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow The Sick Podcast with Tony Marinaro on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts. The Sick Podcast is brought to you by Energy Transportation Group, driven to be different. Bittt, embrace your true nature. And Playground, your premier gaming destination.